And let's go ahead and Nicholas, I'm going to open up your line here. Thank you again for volunteering.
Thank you.
And Peter, if you'd like to go ahead, we're all set to go. Would you like me to give you the ball here?
Yeah, I would like to share my desktop. Hi there, Nicholas. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
And I think we've got it now. Yeah, there we go. Everything's blue. Nicholas, I would like you to take the ball at this point, and to take control of my mouse, which I can do by share, isn't it? Assign. Help me, Jerry. Pass keyboard and mouse control.
Yep, you got it.
It's all coming back to me now. Nicholas Grebe. We have the Western Grebes here in California. Is that how you pronounce your name?
We actually pronounce the last E, so it's Grebe.
Okay, cool. You know there's a bird named after you?
I do.
Yeah. They winter here in San Diego. All right, so Nicholas, show me what the burn time is to the pin end right now. Circle it with the mouse.
To the pin end.
Yep.
Over here.
Are we on time? Early, late? How much time to the pin?
We're 40 seconds late, it looks like.
Yep, exactly. So now I'm going to take the mouse for a second, and I'm going to get the boat rolling on a heading of 315, which would be about. Now, because the boat was dead stopped and accelerated to full speed, what's the burn time to the pin?
56 seconds.
How far are we from the line?
5 boat lengths.
That's right. This little area right here is very, very valuable. I look at this a lot because even if I'm just going to put the boat head to wind for a second. That's the trick with the simulator. All of a sudden, the burn times are wrong because the cal tables think you're going to accelerate, and the simulator doesn't accelerate. It's like an aircraft carrier. It gets 0 to 60 in 0 seconds. But a lot of times I will look at this number here and think, okay, it's 5 seconds of boat length, which usually is in most boats. And therefore, we're about 8 seconds to go if we're boat length. And use that as a double check for all the burn times. Also, Nicholas, what do you think this line here is?
Which line are we talking about?
See the gray line that's slowly moving up?
That's your target line, but I don't really understand how that works.
It's pretty cool. That is theoretically based on the boat's polars and the instrument wind, which we have set at 12 knots. That's where the bow of the boat should be right now. In the absence of any other boats, you're just sailing close hauled up to the starting line. So if that line is ahead of you, that's a sign you're late. If the line is behind you, then, and catching up to you, it shows sort of visually in an analog way how much time you have to, how much distance you have to kill. And there's the gun, and we're going to shift on off. All right, Nicholas, I didn't have a lot for you, but thanks for playing. I'm going to take it back again. Do you have any questions before we go? You get the open mic.
No, I think that's pretty clear. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Let's see. I probably have to unassign, and it's. Hang on one sec. There we go. Take control back. I got control back. All right, guys. Shifting gears from the start to instruments, and this is, I said, where we're not going to be able to really get into details here because I'm not connected to instruments. But on the left-hand side here, one of the main things you have to do for those of you that are just using Expedition for the first time is connect your sailing instruments to your computer. And that is done. You may need an electronics expert to do that. You may be able to go into the help file, which is very well documented and talks about just go into the contents and instruments and networking, and all the different instrument systems and how to hook up. If you have an H5000 system, it talks about settings, et cetera, et cetera. But from a big picture standpoint, to connect to any data that's coming in, whether it be AIS, whether it be sailing instruments, et cetera, you go into this instruments menu and then you select normally serial and network ports. And I'm not connected to any COM ports right now or USB ports, so it only shows a network connection here. But here's a drop-down list. This is where you would select it. If you had a H5000 or H3000 with H-Link, you'd select here. If you had Occam, you'd select this. An Expedition would automatically set up things based on the pre-configured settings, the default settings that the particular instrument system has. If you are connecting to an AIS, you would set it up here. Now, because I don't have a COM port, it's not showing me it's showing me a network type connection with IP addresses and what the type of data is coming in, rather than the baud rate and the bits and the stop number, et cetera, which would normally be set up with a normal instrument connection. But here's where you set up your instrument connection. And you can have more than one set of instruments talking to Expedition at the time. In fact, normally the way that RD and I set up our boats we'll have our sailing instruments, whatever they are, selected as one port. And then on this, this will show more COM ports, because if Windows sees more lines coming in, they'll appear there. And we'll select the second one down, and we'll put the AIS on the second one. And then on the third one, we'll put a GPS. And normally the GPS is coming through just on an NEMA stream, and we'll set that up really fast. And we'll tell the Expedition to use the position fix for the GPS. And that way, in our pre-start, we try to have a high-speed GPS that's operating at 10 hertz or at least 5 hertz, so 5 pings a second, because you want the position of the boat to be as accurate as possible. And we let Expedition take the position from the GPS and not take the position from the AIS or the sailing instruments. Okay, so you can use a bunch of different instruments to come through, and it's a little bit maddening and takes a little bit of practice, and you may need an electronics expert to help you get configured, but this is how you set things up within Expedition. The other cool thing, since we're talking about AIS right now, is that Nick has added is once you have AIS coming in, you're talking to other boats, aren't you? And you're getting COG and SOG and some other information from these other boats. So if you go into AIS, if on your AIS connection, you go into AIS settings, you can assign up to 7 boats and track them. If you know the MMSI, which you can see in the AIS data that's streaming in, and I'll show you where to do it's in the AIS window that you achieve by hitting the drop down here. You can find your arch rival's MMSI. If you type that in here for boat 1, you now can track his speed and direction, his range to the mark, his range and bearing to you, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a really valuable tool. And when Artie and I race against each other, we both are tracking each other's boats here. And you could have more than one boat if you wanted. And remember, boat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are other boats, because the way we by default and the way I recommend you set up Expedition in settings is you call your boat 0. So for example, let me show you one area where this could come in. If you wanted to show the SOG, you're not going to get wind and other stuff. AIS only gives you so much, but for boat one, which you would have had to have configured in your AIS window, you would do this, and boom, then you would have how fast that guy's going. Now, it's not instantaneous. AIS pings every X seconds and stuff. Maybe even more valuable would be to, instead of having it be SOG, let's remove that. Let's make it mark range for boat 1. And then, okay, mark range to boat 1, he's 16 miles to the mark, and we're 15.8, so we're 0.2 miles ahead of him. And I would put my range right next to it. Or on strip chart, we could map, right-click, edit, mark range, boat 1. Of course, there's no information coming through there. And right-click here, make this mark range for your boat, and you can track how you're gaining or losing with respect to the mark, which is the head and behind number of the other boat. Okay, so enough about instruments. I wish we were connected to a system and you could see it more, but this is something. Now, I did mention earlier the Ventus app. That's another instrument system that you can connect to Expedition. And the way you do it is you the help file talks about it, but the Ventus app is basically an app that you can Wi-Fi Expedition data to iPhones or to Apple devices or Android devices, and have basically a set of instruments on your arm or in your pocket if you have a sleeve, waterproof sleeve. And we use the Ventus a lot where you don't have enough instrument displays on a boat. And if you go into the Ventus sailing, Google it, and you can go there and learn how to download the app. You can get it in the Play Store or the Apple Store. And Ventus navigation, there it is. Not cruising in Netherlands, although you may want to do that. It looks like fun. And it'll talk about how to connect and everything, but a very valuable tool. There you can see even on the Apple Watch, and you can even control Expedition. You can ping the ends of the line on a small boat. A lot of people, some people don't without any instrument displays or just a boat speed display, can get more of the functionality of Expedition, especially the pre-start module, by using this app to turn their device into an instrument, a display. All right, back to Expedition. Another thing I want to talk about, since we're talking about navigation, is deck screens. And sort of the default way we've always used navigation on deck before Ventus is by using some sort of tablet on deck. And on the tablet link in Expedition, it talks about a number of solutions to that. There is no one perfect solution anymore, because unfortunately the old Panasonic MDWD that only works with Windows XP is no longer made. You got to buy a used one. You've got to use Windows XP, which drives Nick crazy. And also, you want to start using the power of newer computers. So these Panasonic Toughbook displays are good. A lot of people use Apple iPads and put them in a OtterBox type case. A little bit harder to see visually. They have their pluses and minuses, but you basically are just doing a Wi-Fi connection and turning these devices, whether they be Android or Windows. GTAC makes some nice ones too. There's a waterproof one by Sony. You're turning these devices into screen replicators of your laptop down below. That's the way we like to run Expedition, is not run Expedition on a wireless device on deck, but be plugged into all the instruments on a hard wire down below, and then taking the tablet and screen replicating on deck. And then you have the full control of Expedition on deck. And of course, at that point, if you're using the deck screen, you would do a couple of tricks. One is in system, you tick the tablet box, and then when you go to enter a range and a bearing, like let's see if it does it here. No, it doesn't do it here, but it'll open up a keypad that's easy to tap. And then if you were to, let's do held wind. That'll do it. There's the keypad. And so this could be because we're in tablet mode. And the other thing you would do when you are on deck screen mode would be if you're using CMAP, and let's see, let's kill the start timer here. And let's zoom out. If you're on CMAP, you probably will want to go into black and white mode. And the way, see how the land, I don't have a good CMAP chart here. I just have the default one. But if you go to black and white mode in Expedition, Settings, CMAP, and then turn the palette to black and white, all this is a little bit clearer and easier to see when you're navigating. That's just been my experience. All right, Nick pointed out to me a feature that I have never used, so I'm going to do it for the first time. There's stuff in Expedition that even I don't know about. If you go to a polar, and I better look in I'm going to show this to you later. I thought it was right in here, but no, it's not in there. So strip is just switching over to strip chart again for a second. Sorry about that. I wasn't prepared. I thought I was going to do something. I've pretty much already shown you all strip chart, and if you do the homework, you're going to do these wands. Very important to understand that when you click them, you are setting a left and a right period of time and getting the average of whatever variables you're displaying between them. And it's very important to be able to find your wands. And so I normally zoom out and see a big section of the race course, and then zoom in again and arrow left until I see the wands, and then start playing around with saving tests or looking at instrument calibration, etc. You can have a number of different STR templates, and I see I have a few of them here. I have the Northview Wind template, which has got I changed it, but boat range, mark range, varying with PMG, true wind angle, true wind direction, true wind speed. I can open a new one, or I can just go File and open up the Northview Cog and SOG. No, I won't keep that there. And notice I always keep true wind angle colored the way that I like it. So that's how I'm used to orienting myself on the race course, by looking at true wind angle. And for example, if I were to open up a buoy racing log, let's load a new log file. Here's the log file from Key West Race Week. I'll just keep the old polar. Now imagine we've just sailed one day of Key West Race Week, and we're going into the log file to do some instrument calibration. What I'll do is zoom way out in time and look, and I can see the races. Okay, all right, there it is. Because I'm used to looking at true wind angle, I'll say there I am on starboard. This is all random. Here is the start of a race. And in fact, here's the whole race. It was a downwind finish, the start to finish. And I could even put two wands close and look at the time and say, oh yeah, we started at 9:25 California time. So then I could zoom in and click left until I found that wands again, which I configured there. Oh. Zoom out. There's the wands. 3 hours. Go left. You can't find it the first time. Step down in slower steps. There they are. 1 hour, 30 minutes. Now we're set up. So there's the start right there. And let's go back to the template for the performance template that I have set up. Here, if we wanted to see, okay, how's the wand angle calibration, I'd look at the true wind angle average 32 on starboard, and the average on port 33. Pretty good. How about true wind speed wobble? Well, I'll wand and look at the true wind speed for the last minute or so, 2 minutes, going up to the top mark. And then look at the true wind speed. It says 13.12. And then look at the true wind speed going down. Like, oh, looks like maybe the wind speed went down when we turned downwind. We might have to apply a calibration correction. Let's see if that happened at the bottom mark. The last 2 minutes coming into the bottom, 12.6. And then the last little bit here, 12.2. No, it's reading higher. So I don't jump at things, but I start looking for trends. So this is the type of thing I'd look for. If I was looking at the boat speed calibration, I'd use the cog and SOG table and zoom out a little bit and say, okay, we were going upwind and the boat speed read 0.2 faster than the SOG. Downwind, about equal times on port and starboard, the boat speed read just a little bit faster than SOG. So if there's any current, and I'm assuming now that the current's linear with the wind, but it's a fair thing to do in Key West, it looks like maybe the boat speed is overreading just a little bit. Now, what I would suggest, I'm not going to talk about instrument calibration right here and now, but what I would suggest is go to Northview and check out our we have a Northview course on instruments right here. And in that, I talk about everything I know about calibration and instruments. I rely so much on strip chart when doing the calibration, both real time or during the race. So go to webinars, expedition modules. You can do it. And this was a course, instrument tuning and optimization, 44. You get the same link here. And here, it's one of the recorded settings. So instrument, advanced module. I wonder where it is. Oh, here we go. Advanced module. It's not really an expedition course. And this link will maybe be dead. It went back. You buy it, and you can sign up for it. Highly recommend it. It's cheap, and it's all my secrets about how to set up an instrument system, the steps of calibration, etc., which is very important because all this data that you are that we're looking at in strip chart, it's only as good as the calibration that you do it that you have for it. Let's take a look at a bad log file here for a second. I'm going to load another log file and show you how when the boat isn't calibrated well. Unfortunately, you're seeing log files that I've collected on boats that I've worked hard to make pretty good so they don't jump out at you. But a lot of times you can get things to jump out at you. I've just loaded a log file. I don't know what race it is. I'm just going to go wide here and look at it. Aha, there it is, the whole log file. And look at this. It looks like the start of a race right here on starboard and then port, and then starboard. I remember this now. It's an around the islands race. So I'm going to zoom into that section, moving left in time. There it is right there. And now I'm going to open up the Northview wind template and look at that. This is a great one here. I'm going to just 15 minutes. Was it 2 hours? 1 hour, 30. Again, if you lose your wands, just go in shorter steps. Here we go. Make it 15 minutes. Here we come off the starting line here on starboard. And look at the wind direction, 110. Here we tack. wind direction 86. Great example of instrument calibration wind wobble. And I know Artie likes to do this, so I'll mention it, is you can have 4 wands on here. And when you're looking at a wind wobble like this, the 4 wands are nice because now we can see both averages in one. That's a 15, 25 degree wind wobble. Let's see what happened in the next tack. Yep. On starboard, the wind direction is reading higher. On port, lower, higher header. So you need to add calibration value depending on what instrument system you have. But these jumps here that are concurrent with the tack or the jibe are a great example of how strip chart can help you. Cool. Another way you could load a log file, and it could be helpful to do, is to go into Tools and load a log file. And let's just load that same log file again. And that was in New 101, second class stuff, good WinCal log. Let's see what we see here. Clear existing track. Now this is loading a log file into the Expeditions nav window. It's thinking it's done. So let's see where it was. Zooming out, out, out. I know where it was. In fact, since we have a boat here, I'm going to get rid of the boat now. No more simulator. Zooming in to the Virgin Islands and Virgin Gorda. And here you can see the starting line and a race course where we sailed out of the bitter end and the Yacht Club Costa Smeralda out the gut here, and then sailed a windward leg and then a starboard triangle and down around the Dogs here, an island, and then back. If I had a proper chart, which I don't have of this area, you could see the this. We could also, so loading a log file is helpful. One thing we could do right now is we go to settings and turn on the boat, the winds. And they don't appear. So sometimes you can get the winds to appear on the track of the boat, and maybe I've done it incorrectly and Nick can talk about it there. Display on racing, on the boat, the winds on its track. Maybe if I load the log, let's load another log file, and maybe the tick box needed to be set. So I'm going to go and load another one, which was the North U log, which was the race down, it's a cool race, down to Key West, Fort Lauderdale to Key West race. Expedition's loading it, it's done it. Moving over again, I could have zoomed out and done this quicker. But there is the track of Rambler tacking inside the Gulf Stream all the way down there. And maybe because I don't have the, and I still don't have the winds on there, so I failed to display the winds. But it's cool when you can draw them. And I will, if Nick hasn't mentioned it in the Q&A room of what I've failed to do to draw the recorded winds on the log file, then I will follow up in after the course. All right, replaying a race. We could also simply replay a race. I just want to show you all the things you can do with an existing log file afterwards. And in that, you go into playback, and instead of creating a fake boat, we could open and load a log file. And let's just load another, let's load that, yeah, this one. And now there's the boat sitting from the log file, and it's wind and everything. So that's I know where it is. Settings, user. User channels, track, excuse me, winds. That's how you turn it on. There's the winds on the track. So it was in settings, and it's moved since I did it last. So there's the, now it's drawn the winds in natural, normal, no, wind bar terminology. You can see 30 knots. So I'm going to clear the track here, tools, and clear that track that we loaded previously. And now I'm going to, with playback, I can move forward or backwards in time. So I'm going to move forward to a chunk, another chunk. Let's get off the dock here, guys. We're almost off the dock. There we are, sailing around before the start. And we could speed up the speed of the boat sailing around, and you could actually kind of yeah, good call. I'm going to turn back to the normal colors here to make it a little bit easier to see, or just prettier. But now we are getting ready to start the race. Of course, we probably started right around it's 10:07. I think we just have started, or maybe we're peeling around before the start, so we could follow along and we could, watch the race unfold and replay it in real time, or replay it in fast forward time. And this is an interesting thing to do, especially maybe not as much on a offshore race as it would be for a buoy race, but you could follow the tacks and the jibes and everything else. And here it's, because we've said to display the winds, it's showing the winds. So there's 3 different things you can do with the log files. All right, polars. We've talked about polars pretty much ad infinitum. Sail, polars. The key thing, and I've mentioned it a couple times, so I want to reinforce it, and that is, so you have to know the reference height for the wind speed that your polars are set for. Sometimes rating authorities, or your naval architect who provides you with a polar for your boat will provide a polar scaled to the 10-meter wind. That's sort of the scientific standard. You don't want your polar scaled to the scientific standard. You want it scaled to your masthead height, because then your wind instruments will match the wind speed that the polars are talking about. And you need to make sure that your apples and apples in 3 areas: the polar wind speed, the grid file wind speed, which is right here, weather settings, scale 10-meter wind, because the grid file comes in at a 10-meter wind, and then in this case, we've scaled it up so that your sailing instrument, true wind speed, 26 knots. See, we're actually getting the instruments from the log file that we're playing right now. It's pretty cool. And we're already in the Gulf Stream. Look at that, 1 knot of northbound current. So, and I will refer you once again to the help file and the formula. If we just click search and then scale winds, weather settings, and drag it down, write it down, scale the 10-meter wind. Here's how you use this formula here. The true wind speed at the wand is equal to the true wind speed at 10 meters times the height of the wand in meters, divided by 10 to an exponent. And the exponent is normally a constant somewhere between 11 and 14, 0.11 to 0.14, depending on meteorological situations that we're not going to get into now, like whether you're in high pressure or low pressure or near the equator, or there's good mixing or not good mixing. But this is basically the wind speed is lower at the surface of the water and higher at your masthead most of the time, not always. And you therefore want to scale, make sure your polars and your grip file are scaled to masthead wind using this formula. I think that 110 number that we got there was in weather and settings was because we had like a 20-meter high mast, if I recall. Keep your polars smooth. By smooth, I mean smooth curves. If you edit it and look at it, yeah, this is smooth. Yeah, sure. You go faster on a reach, and then you're slower here. What I don't want to see is big bumps. This is a little unfairness just because these points are close together. But I don't want to see, I want to see relatively smooth curves. If it's not smooth, it's not reality. You know, it's in general. So I try to have fewer data points so it's easier to edit. If I might get a polar from the designer that's got points all over. Let me show you an example of a polar that was a mess. Sail. Actually, we can do it right in here. Load. And then here was a boat that I was given a polar for that I was going to go sail on. It's nice and smooth, pretty simple, but look at all the roads, all the columns, 60 degrees, 70 degrees, 80 degrees, 90. This is, you know, designers, you know, they just run the computer. And then look at the darn optimum VMG, which is the blue number, is in all these different columns. This is not clean. I don't like this polar. Imagine editing this polar. Sure, it's easy to edit the upwind or downwind VMG points like we did. But if you want to start editing the reaching stuff, what if you have a bunch of tests here and you say you want to slow down this a little bit? Well, then you got to slow down this and keep it, because Peter said to keep it smooth. There's too many points here. So what I did was I took this polar and opened it in Excel and edited it down, until it was look like this. Much simpler, less rows and columns. The VMG downwind columns were the last two before the 180s. And that's going to be a much easier polar to deal with in terms of modifying. So it took a little thinning out. I just kept the 70. I kept the upwind angle, the 70 true wind angle, the 90s are good to have, 110, hot spinnaker reaching, and then VMG spinnaker. Well, now we want to take a look at the sail chart, and we talked about this a little bit, but here was the sail chart that you used for the homework example. Let me show you how you would go about going from something like this. Excuse me. I think this is the right file. Your SailMaker is going to give you something like this. All beautiful and gussied up, and there's true wind speed going up from 4 knots to 23. You can zoom this out a little bit, but I just want to give you an example, and then the table. This is a table with pictures. What I did, and then it showed every color, and it shows the overlap of the sails. This is nice to have, and you would print this out. But what I would do is I would print this out or put it on a second computer screen. And in order to turn this into a sail chart that Expedition could use, I need to get it into something that's in a format that looks something like the default sail chart that comes with Expedition. So let's open it in Expedition data folder. So I would, in sales, I have a bunch of sale charts here, but you probably only have one in yours. And there's the sale chart. And it's wind speed going up and wind angle from narrow to broad. And then it has the, in this case, the 2-letter or 3-letter, the simplistic acronym for the sale. And you can make it up yourself. So I normally would open something like this in Excel, which you could do by going right click, open with. It doesn't open with Excel. I'd open Excel and then open it as a text file and then import it. And then I'd end up with getting something that looks like this. I would start building something look like this. And this is in the Excel format. So 4 knots, I have the wind speed going up, wind angle going down, and I color all the boxes for each sail. So I just took that graphic one and copied it. Said, like, where's the crossover? I just picked the middle there and got the crossover and the crossover. And it takes a while, but in the end, and I color them because it's easier for me to make sure, because you need every box to have the correct icon in it. So by doing this, I made sure that I was didn't have an A0, going upwind here, or S4. And once I've created the sale chart in Excel, it looks like this, then I would go File and Save As, and I'd save it as a text file. And it takes a little bit of Excel ability to use the text MS-DOS. Any one of these ones that's a TXT file will work, not Macintosh, TXT. Use that one. And then you play around with it. Now, we have a Northview webinar that talks about sale charts, that goes into details on how to edit it if you're interested, but I just wanted to show you this now. And once I saved it, this very Excel sheet that you saw, then I saved it as a text file, it looks like this, okay? And I would never edit this because it's too hard to mess around with. It's way easier to edit in Excel. But I've got this, I named it the same thing. And so now if I go into Expedition and click Load, Open, and Pendragon 6 sale chart, there she is right there. And of course, I have some sales that are not colored correctly, and they're dark. It would be cool if they weren't dark, but they were. I could then go into the sale list here and start, coloring, guessing which ones they are. I could go back into the table. We did this before, so I'm not going to do it. But there's the A0, and this is probably the A3 or something. You don't have to color them, but there's probably some other sales. So that's how you go from a SailMakers chart to a text file, in this case, that Expedition can use. One of the coolest features in Expedition, I think, is being able to geo-reference charts. Told you this was an overview course, guys. Getting a little bit of everything here. And I'm going to be doing the Bermuda race soon, so it's be good practice for me. Remember, we already figured out that the Bermuda race comes down along here. You can import a picture and turn it into a chart. And in the case of the Bermuda race, a lot of times you can get a graphic like this, sent from some expert oceanographer. But I can turn this graphic and put it in Expedition, so I can not navigate on it, but I can refer to it with the boat's position and with maybe the optimum runs and other stuff here. So how do you do that? Go into Expedition, and you go into Charts, and this is an image. So I'm going to import an image, and I think I can click import and then navigate with Windows to the file, that graphic. And there it is. So now, is it a Mercator projection? Probably. So now I need to click to set the georeference points. Right now, this is just anywhere. It doesn't know where it is. It's not. It doesn't naturally know that this is 75 degrees and this is 80 degrees. You can actually see there's Delaware and there's Delaware, so it's not in the right place. So what we do is I like going to corners near where the area that I'm interested in. So in this case, this is 40 north, isn't it? And then this is 73 west. So let's just, maybe we could zoom in one notch here. No, we can't. 40, I'm going to click right on that 4073 and enter that. 40N space 73 west. Okay, so I got one georeference point there. Then I'll come down under here and maybe go, this is 35, 34, 33, 32, and that's 72. So get right on the crosshair. 32 north, 72 west. Okay, and now let's go over here near Bermuda on the right side and make it really accurate there. So this is 63 west and 34, 32. 32, 63. 32 north, 63 west. And of course, you need the picture that you're importing has to have some latitude and longitudes on it. Otherwise, you don't know where it is. So, and then let's do one over here. Let's call that 70, 41 and 66, right? Right there. So 41 north, 66 west. And now if I click OK, it should, and then say, there it's inserted that chart. Expeditions just created a chart from a graphic. If I say open it, there she is, displayed in the right place, more or less. And with the and you wouldn't navigate with this, but as you're sailing down the Gulf Stream, you'd say, okay, you're approaching the wall now. We can zoom in on this and see details, etc. Let's see how good we were with our referencing. Zooming out just for a second. This should be 65 and 35 down here. So look at the icon here. Is this 65 and 35? Yeah, 65 and 35. Not bad for government work. We're going to call that a success. You've seen how to georeference a picture and insert it in an expedition. And very valuable for Gulf Stream type stuff. Okay, guys, coming up top of the hour, one more to go. Get a cup of coffee, get some energy going. This will be the best one yet. Back to you, Jerry.
Well, thank you, Peter. So let's go ahead and take us back to our break. So just as before, we're going to run our video and come back in about 7 minutes. Let's run our video.